Greetings, everyone. This is Tiffany Martinez. I hope you guys are doing amazing wherever you are in the world. This particular video is not about, promoting my business or anything like that. It's strictly about the pain management, and that I am actively looking for an attorney that's willing to do the footwork to help me sue my previous pain management. I know I've mentioned this like in bits and pieces and other videos, but today is September 4th, 2024. Um, Last night I had what seemed like the most extended episode and or flare up like that I've had in a great while. Like when I usually get really bad flare-ups, it's pretty scary. Number one, number two, I'm generally crying the entire time. And the last time that I've had a flare-up like this was probably before my husband transitioned, and around 2019. It was around 2019 because when I came back from the East Coast and visiting my mother, there was a huge change within my body. I went over there like in March, so basically that cold weather when I landed in Colorado, it basically put my body in a shock, and I live in Southern California, so we don't really get those type temperatures. So anyways, November 30th, 2021, when my husband transitioned, that put me in a different type of mental state, meaning I still miss him. I still go through a lot of the grief. And then November 4th, 2022, a year later, my mother transitioned. So that's a lot. For me, that's a lot. I don't know about anybody else, but for me, that's a hell of a lot of stuff to have to go through. So, and I have been in pain management for, I would say, at least 10 years. And I was with the previous one for several years. That's the one that's located in Rancho Mirage, California. I don't want to mention their name because, one, I don't want to give them the heads up that they're about to be sued again by one of their former patients. Like I said, last night, I was in excruciating pain for well over 4 hours. And people who you guys may immediately say, why don't you just go to the emergency room? One, I don't drive at nighttime or when there's no sun out. I just don't. Two, anyone that's in pain management, or if they go to an emergency room and they're asking for, you would think that they would help them. But the last time I went to the medical center in Palm Springs, and I really don't want to say these names because I'm not upset with them or anything, they put me on an IV with fluids. That's it. Like, I never said I was dehydrated. I said my body is in crisis. That's what I said. So when you're in pain management, one, you're not supposed to accept any type of like additional narcotics when, like, even if you go to the dentist, like, you almost like you're obligated to tell them because they could get sued for basically giving you the medications, allegedly. I'm not an attorney. So anyways, it's barbaric. Like I said, my husband transitioned and my mother transitioned, and because of the pandemic, most people were already on telehealth. Some people went in, but California was starting to get a little bit aggressive. And you would think, like, if you were a customer for so many years, it's not a customer thing. This is just a for instance, that if you're a long-time customer, you would think that person would be a little bit more accommodating. So I explained to the pain management that I was affiliated with initially that my husband transitioned and I needed more time before I could go back into a physical appointment, and they were like, okay, they were accommodating for that. They were accommodating with my mother. They understood. But when the law was basically forcing people to go back in person, they had a problem with that. So we had a verbal agreement. And if you call them today, they will say, yeah, we told her that she could come in person twice a year. And I held up my end, meaning I went to the first appointment, and I also was obligated to go to get my labs done, like at LabCorp or whatever, once a month, so they basically can, test my body fluids, basically, to see if I was taking anything outside of what they were prescribing me. I went to every single one to have the labs done. Um, but then when it was time for my next appointment, which they did it over the phone, they became aggressive, saying, well, I don't, the nurse practitioner, basically, she wasn't necessarily rude or anything. It's just, she was just reading from a script, basically. And she was like, well, you have to start coming in. I don't make the rules, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, I want to speak to your manager. And then I actually asked to speak to the director of the program, because we had a verbal agreement, but allegedly he was outside of the country. And I was like, well, that don't have anything to do with me. What has to do with me is you guys and myself, we had an agreement that I would go twice a year. Well, they didn't want to do that. Okay, so they said, this is not verbatim, but basically they said you have to go in person if you want the medications. Like, because I was on extended release morphine, meaning I would take that once a day. I was taking Lyrica 3 times a day, the generic form. I was taking that 3 times a day. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, spinal cord stenosis that has already elevated to the severe, basically the final stage. I've been diagnosed with intractable pain, chronic pain, lots of nerve damage, right? So, they were aware of this because they ordered the test. I also saw a rheumatologist, and she ran an extensive panel of different tests to see if I had lupus, or if it was rheumatoid arthritis, blah, blah, blah. So pain management was aware. They basically cut me off and said, unless you come in person, we're not going to give you the drugs. Well, like I said, this is Tiffany Martinez, and I'm never going to beg anyone for anything, never. For nothing. I'm never going to beg you for anything. And the only thing that I've since linked up with another pain management, but I do want to sue the previous pain management, because I believe what they did was undermined, malicious, and barbaric. Because this isn't like if you're a smoker and you quit cold turkey. It's not like that. And I used to smoke when I was younger, young and dumb type thing. I used to be a smoker, and I was able to quit cold turkey. But you're not supposed to take a person off of a medication that is a narcotic. You're supposed to taper them off. They just said, if you're not going to come, you're not going to get it, in the story. And I said, I repeated what we had in a verbal agreement, and they never denied that. They never denied saying, no, I didn't say we didn't have a verbal agreement, but what I said was, or what I'm saying now is, I don't have control over that. I'm like, well, that's when I started to request to speak with the medical director, as well as the person who's in charge of the program. Basically, they ended up calling me one day, and that's when the aggression came. It didn't come from the nurse practitioner. It came from whatever office manager that they have employed there. And she says, well, if you're not going to come, I'm just going to discharge you. And they never sent the medications, nothing. And this has been a year, like I said. And most people are going to say, well, why don't you just go into your emergency room or your nearest hospital? Because anybody who lives in that level of pain, they are going to immediately look at you as a drug seeker. Again, it's been at least one full calendar year. A drug seeker is not going to wait a whole year to to get what they want, basically. like they're it's like a serial killer. They're not that coordinated to have a basically a daily planner. Like, okay, well, this person is gonna come in that day. I'm gonna kill them that day. Like, they're not gonna wait a whole year. So, anyways, like I said, I did link up with a new pain management in Palm Springs, except this particular doctor does not write scripts for narcotics. He did let me get back. Even he was confused. He says, "Okay, I get it. They don't want to write the narco, the narcotics anymore, but why did they take you off of the Lyrica and the Butran patch?" And I said, that's something that you need to ask them, because I'm wondering the same thing. It was very, very, very barbaric. So I'm now back on the Butran patch and on the Lyrica. I'm not sure if I don't remember if because ever since my husband died, I kind of just forget stuff, and I'm far from stupid, despite what you may think. I was on the Lyrica, the Butran patch, the extended release morphine, and I was on Norco. But the Norco I was only using as a rescue medication, if that makes sense. Kind of like an inhaler. You don't really take puffs just to take puffs, and I just use it when my body's in crisis. And my body was in so much pain last night. I was very, very, very terrified of what was going to happen, because living with the spinal cord stenosis, a few weeks ago I decided to go out to get my ends trimmed, like get my hair trimmed, and I hadn't had that done in quite some time. I was just kind of basically testing the waters to go out and do things like normal people, basically. And while waiting for the lady to say, come back, both of my legs were going numb in real time. And it's like if you were in water and you can't swim, and the water is growing higher, and it's almost at your chest and it's at your chin, you just know you're going to drown. That's what it was feeling like when the numbness was going from my toes to my feet to my ankles, all the way up to my knees. And I didn't want to try to stand up and fall, but I also didn't want to continue to sit there. So that was very, very, very scary for me. And it's like I said, my husband transitioned, and it was just different when he was here. You know what I mean? That's your support. That's your friend. That's the one that you trust. I am currently actively looking for an attorney that is located or that represents California, because I would love to sue this pain management. Again, this is Tiffany Martinez, and apologies that the video is almost 13 minutes.